Hey, what's going on, guys? Battle Nations Emperor here, back with the 4th video of the channel. And guys, let me tell you, I'm very excited about this video. I think this might just end up being my best video I've made so far, which actually thinking about it isn't saying much since this is only the 4th video, but nevertheless, still very excited for it. So this is going to be a start of basically a 101 series. I'm probably going to title this something like Battle Nations 101, and this is just going to be a brief introduction and review of all of the main Battle Nations cast. So this is only part 1, so we have plenty of more characters to go through. If you guys like this, please drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And yeah, let's jump right into this. If you guys like it, we can definitely make a part 2. We can expand to the villains. We can expand to just some of the NPCs because, my goodness, guys, there's a lot of characters. I went through the characters list. There's over 500 listed characters in the wiki for Battle Nations. And I was like, man, there's 500 NPCs in this game. And yeah, I'll admit, a lot of them I just did not know, like off bat, like straight up. They didn't even ring a bell, don't recognize their face, nothing. But a lot of them just, recessed memories like, oh yeah, I remember who you were from a decade ago when I used to play the game. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting characters here, but without any further delay, let's jump right into this video. So first character off, we've of course basically got the main star of Battle Nations. We got the man himself, Lieutenant Morgan. Now, I really don't think I need to explain who Morgan is if you do know Battle Nations, but if you don't, if this is your first introductory, of course, welcome to the community. And let's get into who Morgan is. Morgan is a lieutenant general for the Empire. He earned money through modeling. He was a catalog modeler, and that's how he earned money for college. He was able to save up, go to college. We don't know exactly what college he went to, but all we know is that he did go to a college within the Empire, so it was somewhere within Empire territory. He did attend this college. He graduated, apparently not at the top of his class, but very well. And very shortly after graduating, he was sent to the Northern Ridge, where the game takes place and the events of the story unfold. His gun is referred to as a 50 caliber Tundra Eagle, which is a direct reference to a Desert Eagle, of course, Desert Eagle, famous gun. He has a protocol called Situation Gemini, which what this basically is if him and Perkins ever get into a situation what they consider unresolvable or basically just, end of the world type scenario, both of them will find inner peace within themselves, forgive each other, and then commit suicide together. This did almost happen once by accident, where Zoe, as soon as the player defeats the Sentinel for the first time and completes one of the optional missions to get some of the fragments for it, she brings back some of the technology to the outpost, and Morgan, not realizing what this was, accidentally activates Situation Gemini, and he thankfully never ends up taking the pill, but Perkins ends up does, and we'll get into that with Perkins, but thankfully he was all right after that. That isn't what ended up getting him. So yeah, he's got Situation Gemini with Perkins, and a few funny things about him. He says after a few key missions that he had his conscience removed after he became the lieutenant by a witch doctor, and he still keeps his conscience sitting on his desk, which is really funny to think about. He is also extremely afraid of horses, as a gypsy in a conversation one time convinced him that is how he will die. He will die in some way related to horses, so he does his best to avoid horses overall and just not interact with them whatsoever. Finally, going on to the last two things, of course, the the now famous quote of "I ate a nanopod" or "Don't eat a nanopod." This does come directly from Morgan. In some instances, after finishing a battle, he will say, "I ate a nanopod once. Wouldn't recommend it." That's where that famous saying comes from. And finally, of course, what we all know about Morgan, he is a very, very famous drunk. He is constantly drunk. In fact, in the intro trailer to Battle Nations, you literally see him coming off of a hangover, and introduces him as Lieutenant Morgan recovering from a hangover. So drunkard, but by all means we do love him. I would say, I'm going to try to say what are the chances these characters come back through, the Reborn, because of course we don't know if all these characters are coming back, but I can say with about 99% confidence Morgan is coming back. I mean, I would be flabbergasted if Morgan was not to come back. He is basically the face of Battle Nations, if you can give a face to Battle Nations. So, by all means, a lovable character, the strong, upfront soldier, confident even if he is a little bit of a drunk, and very goofy sometimes. We love you, Morgan. Great main character. On to the next one. That, of course, is Ramsey. Ramsey is a hard hitter. He's the tough guy soldier. And very put simply, he's basically Heavy from TF2. That's kind of why when they did the partnership with TF2, they put him in the promo cover right next to Heavy, because he is literally pretty much just Heavy. If you play TF2 or are aware of TF2, if you know who Heavy is, well, you basically know who Ramsey is. It's basically just him. But we can break him down into a little bit more than that. He is the owner of Mr. Purrface, the famous cat in the game, the bottom image right there. And he is also in a relationship and currently dating Cassidy, the young lady at the top right there. So the bottom is his cat and the top is his current girlfriend. He once attacked a raider outpost all by himself, thinking he could take it out simply due to the fact of he hated raiders and just felt like he was in the mood to kill some. He attacked the outpost by himself, which ended up resulting in him being captured. This would result in another mission where Cassidy and the player would have to go rescue him, and this was before Cassidy was even dating him, so she would end up rescuing him, and then she would end up rescuing him, being mad at him, he would apologize, and then they would go out dating later on. So, worked out well for him in the end, I would say. Last two things, he has a distinct hatred of pigeons, and the top of his head is described as very shiny in some in-game instances. Finally, he is a health nut and a fit nut, which you could probably tell from looking at him, but this is just given by offhand comments. Sometimes he says he's always working out when he's not in fight. He constantly talks about other players need to get in shape or that they need to work out more, even if they are technically perfectly fine by the rest of our reviews. So yeah, very fit, very health nut. We love you, Ramsey. You're probably the second face of Battle Nations, and that's why I can say, besides Morgan, you're the second most confident I am in coming back. There's no way I think they bring Battle Nations back without having Ramsey, Morgan, or Floyd. Speaking of Floyd, let's get on to him right over quick. Good man right here, good boy Floyd, our civil engineer scientist at the outpost. So what do we know about our boy Floyd? Well, we know a little bit about Floyd. Before serving the Empire and working at the outpost during the game, he used to be a truck driver. This was his profession. He used this to make a little bit of money, but of course this was not where his real passion was. Later on, of course, he would come to the outpost where the main story of the game would take place. He is a huge animal lover and animal rights activist. He is constantly sticking up for the animals. When Ramsey suggests to the crew that they should go out boar hunting to get meat for the team, he is the one to shoot it down and try to recommend vegan options to the rest of the crew. When Spider Wasp invaded the outpost, it is Morgan and Ramsey's idea to completely incinerate them with fire. It is Floyd's idea to try to capture and tame them, and this, thankfully, if you go with his optional mission, you do get Spider Wasp trainable for a limited time at the Rancher's Outpost. I believe that was a limited edition event sometime within the mid-life cycle of Battle Nations. Thirdly, he is not old. Despite his appearance and white hair and white eyebrows, he is actually not old. His hair is white simply due to stress, which, I mean, seeing the stuff he and the rest of the cast have to go through on practically a daily basis, I don't blame him whatsoever. It's a very stressful situation working for the Empire, being on the outpost in Battle Nation. So no loss there, and when you look past his white hair, you can definitely tell he's probably roughly the same age or Morgan Ramsey as the rest of the guys, so not genuinely that old. And finally, he does not know how to cook for the life of him. He cannot cook. He was forced to cook one time a pie, and he ended up making a bomb which exploded. Thankfully, it didn't kill anybody, at least nobody in the main cast, so it ended up being a footnote, but I thought that was pretty funny. Moving on to our next main character, we have Zoe, of course. Zoe, of course, being our at-home engineer of the game. And we do know a little bit about Zoe. First off, she is the only main character who we have a definitive age for. Zoe is stated to be 22 years old in the game's lore, so we have her exact age. Zoe also, besides being an amazing mechanic and basically the functioning, fixer-upper, if you will, of the outpost, she also becomes the de facto mother of the Raider kids after Ramsey opens fire on them, almost killing several of them, and I believe scaring the hell out of all of them. I was going to say injured them, but I believe he just scared the hell out of them. Zoe reprimands Ramsey for this, for just opening fire on actual children, after which she bakes cakes and builds them a tank. Well, They did build the tank themselves, but they couldn't have done it without the help of her. She becomes their de facto mother and de facto guardian, and she is seen throughout the rest of the story taking care of them and being kind of a motherly figure for them. The last notable thing about Zoe is that her wrench is specifically defined as a monkey wrench. We do know what it is. It is called a monkey wrench multiple times in the game, and it is stated several times in the wiki it is a monkey wrench. I'm be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure if a monkey wrench is too terribly different from a regular wrench besides the size, but yeah, it did state it multiple times in the wiki that it was a monkey wrench. So definitely a monkey wrench she is holding right there in her in-game icon and in battle. And finally, moving on to the last main character for today's video, we of course have the lovable Perkins. Now, Perkins actually has some interesting information, especially his last one, which we'll get into, or I'm sorry, second to last one. But let's get into Perkins. So first off, Perkins starts the game as a civilian, and we begin the game going into it. We see Perkins is actually a civilian undergoing basic training under the hands of Ramsey. Ramsey is his mentor. He's telling him how it works on the battlefield, how to survive out here, and basically just what to expect out here fighting for the Empire in the outpost. Despite being very likable, very friendly, and even if you could argue a little dim, but very kind, he is constantly belittled and mistreated by the rest of characters, especially Morgan and Ramsey, who often use him as the butt of a joke, use them as an out for their own problems, and constantly say his life is worthless and that they will throw him out as cannon fodder. He's mentioned cannon fodder multiple times by Ramsey and Morgan. Very sad for our poor boy. Thirdly, he has the most character development out of anybody in the entire story. He starts the story as pretty much just a kid thrown into war, a draftee, if you will. I don't believe he actually was a draftee, but it's just that kind of idea. He was a kid, he was a regular civilian, he's very scared at the beginning. By the end of the game, he is extremely confident, extremely professional. I wouldn't say like to the level of Morgan or Ramsey, there's definitely still his superiors, but going off what he was at the beginning of the game to what he is at the end, you see a massive level of maturity. The biggest instances of this is once the player hits level 50, Perkins will go from shooting like a wimp, shooting off into the distance, missing several of his shots and doing it without very much confidence, to shooting like Morgan. He will straight up pull up his rifle, confidently look down, take the shot, take very little recoil, and then put it back down. So again, massive character development for Perkins. You love to see it, and you wish the best for him until I was reading this in the wiki. I actually couldn't believe it. So while in a later mission looking at Installation 17, which is a base on the open world, the cast, or the team, is ambushed by a group of rebels. They pin down your army along with Floyd, and they're able to separate through a smokescreen distraction Perkins and the rest of the team. They used this opportunity to abduct Perkins and kidnap him, after which he is never heard from again. Which I just love the idea about, because in all honesty, what probably happened is Z2 thought they could make this a future storyline. They're like, okay, have Perkins get kidnapped and we'll have him get freed later. But I just love the factor that they did this, and then Z2 got bought out and then unfortunately had to shut down Battle Nations, and we just never got a resolution on this. So until Madrona Games clarifies it with the upcoming relaunch of Battle Nations, my personal headcanon is that Perkins got kidnapped and is now a personal sex slave of the rebels. And finally, of course, we have the factor of that Perkins is actually the uncle of Floyd. Fun fact, this isn't actually confirmed by any of the developers of the the development team of the old Battle Nation Z2. This was actually done by a fan contest where somebody wrote in multiple drawings or drafts of Perkins' background, and the one they ended up choosing was basically the song of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but they ended up basically rewriting everything out and making it about Perkins, and in that song it is stated that Floyd is his uncle, which the team would later say is canonized. So it is canonized that Floyd is Perkins' uncle, if Perkins is still out there. Again, personal headcanon is that he's gone, sex slave, boohoo, but we'll see what Madrona Games does. And that will just about do it for us today, guys. I had a lot of fun going through the wiki and looking through everybody. There were so many more characters that, honestly, I completely forgotten about. Some that I have no clue about, I've never seen, but they look Battle Nations-esque, if you will, so I definitely know that they fit in with the game. And even just the main cast right here, the few 5 that we did cover, I learned a lot about them. A lot of this information I didn't know. I knew general information. I knew, Ramsey was, the soldier. Morgan was the commander. Perkins was, the curious kid. And, Zoe was, this lovable sweetheart. But I didn't know, like, in-depth facts. Like, for example, I didn't know Morgan was a model. I didn't know Floyd was a truck driver. Just crazy stuff like that. So, yeah, I hope you guys liked today's video. I hope you were able to learn something new. Hope I was able to share some information with you, spread some more information about the Battle Nations Wiki. We need to archive all that information as fans, while we still have that up. Thank goodness it's still up and still giving us all this great lore about the game, and I'm gonna do my best to try to document it here for us. But again, guys, thank you very much for watching today's video. If you've made it all this way, I truly appreciate you. Please consider dropping a like down below if you haven't already, and subscribing to the channel if you are new. And with that all being said, again, hope you guys like today's video. If it goes well, if we get good publicity or we get good feedback and nobody wants any other videos, we can definitely do a part 2 tomorrow. I'm thinking we can go into the story of Cassidy, Mr. Perface, and again, some of the other main character allies. But that will truly do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a great rest of your day.